excited to see all these people in here to talk about this topic. So I'm with the IWSR, and we track global beverage alcohol sales around the world. So we're sort of the leading source of total beverage alcohol, all categories, all countries around the world. And we work with all the major beverage alcohol producers and anyone who tracks sort of the industry. And a lot of our clients started asking us, like they did with e-commerce and with low-no alcohol, what do we do about cannabis? Is it a threat to the industry, right? That's the big question. And basically, we partnered with a company called BDS Analytics, and Jess, my partner on this project, was not able to be here, but BDS is sort of like the scan data of cannabis products. And so they've been tracking in recreational legal states by SKU level, so the differences in the types of different cannabis products. And we really got together and talked, and I said, I want to look at this in terms of the lens of beverage alcohol, right? So does it have an impact on consumer behavior and occasions? And so part of the research we did is a combination of consumer research, but also looking at a few key points. And this is a several hundred-page study, but I've cut down to a couple of key slides, and I just want to talk on the main points. So the top 5 for us, and I think this is a critical point, is cannabis and alcohol are completely different. One is a very big established industry that is huge, and the other one is small, and there's still a lot of regulation, there's still a lot of people trying to sort it out. One is regulated by ABV, the other's with milligrams. So there's a lot of different things in terms of different buzz bucks in terms of is it a one for one. So the important thing to think about is this is not like it's an apples and oranges situation in terms of how you compare them. That being said, we know that not every dollar spent on legal cannabis is taken from alcohol. It's very complex. We also know there's not one cannabis consumer. I think most of you have had probably this conversation with someone in your life, and you start talking about recreational legalization. Maybe it's your parents or your grandparents, and they say, this is the idea of who the cannabis or marijuana consumer is. And the reality is we know that that's very, very different and will continue to change. But the main takeaway from our study is we wanted to say there is a risk to alcohol due to legal cannabis, and it's going to be bigger as cannabis acceptance and consumption grows. I cannot emphasize that point enough. We know, and I will show you, and I'm curious to see with the rest of the panelists, we know there's not a direct impact right now when you look at legal states in terms of does cannabis actually decrease alcohol sales. But we do know that as the consumption and acceptance grows, and as more products become more mainstream, and as consumers become more educated, there will be a risk. And I'm going to talk about what some of those occasions and risks are by category. And the great part about this for beverage alcohol is that there's opportunities. We're already seeing a lot of products on the market. We know a lot of our clients and all the big producers are looking at cannabis, CBD, or THC and figuring out how does that affect my consumer, right? Because everything is based on your consumer and how you market the consumer. So there's a big opportunity to learn about this. So cannabis beverages, so the way the BDS tracks, you're looking at tracked edible sales. The beverage part is where we think there's a threat to beverage alcohol, right? So it's a one for one. If I have something that tastes like a beer, looks like a beer, is marketed as a beer, but has THC or CBD in it instead of alcohol, then that is something that beverage alcohol producers would look at as potentially a threat, right? So a like for like situation. So if you look at beverages, it's still a very small percent though in overall vehicles for consumption of cannabis. And we know that the beverage market right now is still a fraction of what the edibles market is. And if we break down the actual beverage market, we know that carbonated and non-carbonated actually lead where the market is, but there's growth coming in powders and teas. So for our purposes of, beverage alcohol industry, we're looking at those carbonated, non-carbonated, and again, what is the threat in terms of beverage as a consumption vehicle, and how does that affect things? And we know there's a ton of products that are sort of rapidly evolving. I think the key ones that are really interesting, and we know that cannabis companies are developing these innovative solutions, so they have to be non-alcohol, and they contain THC or CBD, but how is the manufacturer going to leverage that expertise and start figuring out the ways to do it? And we know brands like Two Roots, which have the kind of delayed release sort of technology, so in a way that you're drinking this beer that looks like a beer, tastes like a beer, and gives you that same sort of buzz, as slow release buzz that you can't get from an edible, for example. So as the technology is rapidly evolving, and I think these guys are going to talk a lot more about that than my knowledge set, but we know that there's a lot going on. And this is a really important chart because there's a lot of information out there all over the place, but if you look at beverage alcohol sales and cannabis sales, you can see that everything is sort of stable, right? So you're not seeing a huge decline of beverage alcohol sales in legal markets. And again, this is looking at it from a quarterly perspective over time. So it's too big of a jump to say right now that there's a direct effect, because again, there's only a certain amount of states that are legalized, and the beverage alcohol industry is huge. Also, people have to go into different recreational stores. It's a different buying experience. It's not like you're walking into 7-Eleven and you're pulling a CBD or cannabis product off the shelf in terms of a beverage alcohol type delivery occasion. And so it's a fraction of the market. So we know it's a fraction of total alcohol market. So if we look at the market projections between cannabis and alcohol, we know that they're just completely different. So there's still plenty of room to grow, and I think there's a whole host of legal and consumer behavior issues that are going to be kind of changing over time. So then on the survey side, when we start talking to consumers, right, and we look at people as alcohol exclusive, people who only consume alcohol, people who are dualists, who are alcohol and cannabis consumers, and people who are kind of rejectors. But we're going to forget about the rejectors because they're not important to us right now. We want to talk about the people that actually are focused on alcohol and also alcohol and cannabis. And we know overall that dualists are more likely to drink beer, spirits, and craft beer, and a little bit fewer drink wine. And then if we look at pairing occasions, this is what's interesting. So dualists are typically not pairing alcohol with marijuana in large groups. So a lot of that has to do with you can't consume in public, at least not legally, openly. There's no on-premise license for being able to go and enjoy a cannabis product or marijuana with alcohol. That could potentially change, which also that acceptance and that, do I feel embarrassed? Is it, if I'm a mom with kids, am I going to be smoking in front of my kids? It feels like I'd rather have a glass of wine. So those large group situations, consumers still are not at that level where they're feeling comfortable enough. And there's a difference in terms of the buzz, right? So for alcohol is a bit of an upper and more social, and cannabis is a bit opposite. So right now when we look at those occasions, it's different. As such, a lot of alcohol occasions are still alcohol occasions, right? So we know that certain things, if you're going out on a date night or you're going out to celebrate, they're going to be alcohol occasions where cannabis occasions may be different. So we see that. However, if you look at some of the occasions, the ones that are most at risk, so this is what's important if you're a brand manager at a beverage alcohol company and you're targeting specific genders and demographics, which we get into in our study, very specific categories, gender and demographics, which ones are more at risk based on that occasion, based on are they male or female, how old they are, if those are the people that might start choosing a cannabis product over a beverage alcohol product. And we know that that's that unwind time and that, I think, the relaxing time. So traditional alcohol occasions are still alcohol occasions, but the risk will grow. So, I had clients and we talked about doing this study and I said, we're doing it. And the first client, who's a major beverage alcohol spirits producer, said to me, I don't need to worry about cannabis, it's only going to affect beer. So to me, that's a very naive and very incorrect statement. So anyone in this industry that thinks it's only beer or it's only this or that, ultimately, there will be an opportunity where everyone in this room, if you have not already, and every consumer will have an opportunity or a consideration set, as I like to call it. You have a consideration point to choose a cannabis product in a certain situation, potentially over a beverage alcohol. And if there's health reasons involved, if you're on different medications, if you're trying to lose weight, all of these trends we see with health and wellness, cannabis fits and checks a lot of boxes for a lot of people. So as it becomes, again, more accepted, more legally available in states, there will be a risk to beverage alcohol, and that's kind of the key point that we have for that. So there's a lot of opportunity. Those are my quick 6-7 minutes, and I'm going to pass on to the next guys.